Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today. Let's do it. What are some creepy, hard to believe stories that have happened to you that you can't explain? Please remember to like, share, hype, ask, and listen for more shoutouts today. There's a lot. And subscribe. My sophomore junior year of college, I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate on the second story. At some point in the middle of the night, I rolled over and groggily saw a shadowed male figure standing over me. I was mostly asleep and not correctly interpreting the scene, so I didn't react and found it more curious than anything, and quickly fell off into sleep. The next morning, roommate comes in and asks why I left the sliding glass door to our patio open. I didn't, and I jokingly tell her about my weird vision and how the man must have opened it. I walked into my closet to get ready for class, and there was a bunch of white popcorn material from the ceiling on the ground. The attic door was in my closet, and the door was ajar. What the heck? I became creeped out. I contacted management, who sent someone to enter the attic, and they found a hole had been created in the side of the roof, and that someone had been climbing a tree and entering the whole attic and found old magazines and food items. Then I was told the attic is actually connected to all of the second-story apartments. I couldn't sleep in that apartment after that, and had trouble with grades until I was finally able to move out. I was around 9 to 10 years old, and the oldest of 2 siblings. One night I heard my sister, 2 years old, crying, which woke me up from a nightmare that my mom was being taken to a hospital bleeding. After a minute of her seriously loud, I got up to check on her and realized my brother, 4 years old, probably snuck in bed with me, so I moved out without waking him up to check on my sister, who wasn't in her crib. Now that freaked the f*** out of me. I turned all the lights and started to scream her name, and both my sister and brother come out from my room. They both had a nightmare, and I decided to sleep with me. I tell them to go back to my room and go check on our parents, who aren't home. Now I pretend everything is okay, because I don't want 2 little children crying while I don't know why we're home alone at 4 in the morning. My grandmother showed up almost an hour later and told us our mom had a migraine and had to go to the hospital, and she was staying with us for a while. Years later, I found out it wasn't a migraine. My mother had but a miscarriage. I have no explanation for what happened that night. I'm not one for believing in ghosts, but there was something in college that could not have been just a coincidence. The dorm room that I stayed at my second semester of sophomore year was the singles dorm room. It was one of the few dorms that you could room by yourself, but they were really tiny, like only a twin bed could fit in there. Well, one day when I was walking back to my room, there were these guys outside their own rooms. One of the guys was pretty shook up, and I overheard him saying that stuff kept flipping off his shelves and that things are being slightly rearranged. I didn't think too much of it from then on, at least not until the following year. The year after, I was hanging out with one of my friends when he said he needed to pick something up from his room. So we went to his room, and I realized that I was in the same room the guy in the previous year stayed at. Before I could say anything, he told me that the room really freaked him out. He said that he would be in bed with his girlfriend when all of a sudden he would hear a lady whispering, "Levitate," which is get up in Spanish. He would mostly just hear gibberish from what I remember, and maybe something would be misplaced. It didn't help when I told him about the previous person there, and there's no way that the 2 of them knew about each other. And yet, shit happened in the same small room. What makes it creepier is that supposedly the dorm room housed the clergy. This was a Catholic university, so make of it what you will, but this is the only instance that I can't logically explain. There were a few other instances that freaked me out at this school, but this one took the cake. Alright, so I'm going to have to look at my notes for one of these because there was like a two-part thing, and I've always told you end on the positive, so we'll address the first things first. Smash the cash. I don't use an AI bot to simulate my voice. I read all of these. If I was using an AI bot, I probably wouldn't put yawning in there or some pronunciation. I read these every day. It takes anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, so thanks for the doubt, but it's all me. Sorry to disappoint you. And the Dark Miles, are you okay? You could call me illiterate. I am a Marine after all, so I know we're not the sharpest tools in the shed, but thanks for listening, I guess, even through your rampant negativity. I hope you find happiness in life. And 2, Dougal4144. Hello, dear grandma. Thanks for listening. Hi, Jossie. I hope I said that right, Jocelyn. Again, thanks to you as well. Misty Black, I've seen your name for years on the comment section, so good to say hi to you. I hope that all is well with you and your family as well. And finally, William Pena and your brother, Jonathan. He's got a great name. Anyway, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. And again, remember, there are people behind these voices, yawns and all, so have a great day. My family and I used to drive to this old village by the sea when we were kids, and we would spend the whole summer there. The village was known for having a lot of abandoned houses due to old owners dying and then not finding any relatives. The house right next to ours had been totally abandoned since way before we moved there. The door and the windows were all boarded up, and the house had been untouched for at least 10 years. Anyway, one summer, me and my cousins decided it would be fun to break the wooden boards and look in the window to see what the house was like on the inside. We cracked one of the boards enough to be able to see inside, and to this day I will never forget the sight. The window belonged to a bedroom, and with the bedroom door open, you could kind of see like half of the house through the window, and the entire house was spotless. Not a speck of dust in the place. The beds were made and looked clean and untouched. The ceiling fan was on. There was a prayer carpet on the floor. I come from a Muslim country. Needless to say, we were weirded out. So we go to the security guard that watches our block to ask if anyone has brought the house, and he says the owner died a long time ago, and it hasn't been touched since. One day later, the board was back up, as if we'd never been there. I have hypnopompic hallucinations, which for me means that sometimes when I wake up at night, I see people standing in my house. They will stay there for a few seconds even if I move. Sometimes they move themselves. I know they aren't ghosts because one time I saw a family member who's still very alive. It's pretty creepy, even though I know they aren't real, especially the time I saw a man in old-fashioned clothing who reached for a knife in his belt. Fortunately, I don't see them very often. I was gaming last summer in my bedroom, which is on the second story. I still live at home with my parents for now, since I am just about to finish college. I'm sitting with my controller in my hand with my back slightly turned toward my window. It's evening, and suddenly I hear this knocking on my window, like someone rasping their knuckles on it. I turn immediately, and nothing is there. It's evening, and I'm thinking bats. We have those living under the roof, but while I think that, my gut is telling me danger. I am not sure why. I looked outside and see nothing. I go downstairs and ask my parents if they did something. Nope. I'm terrified. I'm also a 27-year-old male, and I can't shake this feeling. I ask my dad to check outside, and there's nothing there. I let it slide, sleep uneasy, but I forget all about it. The next day it happens again, this time twice, and the feeling returns. I go to my father downstairs, and he looks scared. I ask him what happened. He tells me he heard the knocks, opened the curtains to check the yard, didn't see anything when he went to open the back door. He felt something immediately slam against the door. He jumps back, opens it again, and nothing. We never had it happen again, but that was so incredibly weird. Back in primary school, 3rd grade, we had this 3rd grade camp on our school's rugby field on a Friday night. No tents though, we all slept in the clubhouse on the field. It was a lit night. We played games, hide and seek, sang songs, and teased the 3rd grade couples. It was an amazing night, till my group of friends and I went out to hide on the other side of the rugby field, where the lights were turned off. We had 3 torches, and being 3rd graders, we were already in this spooky, scary vibe. We were planning to go hide in the tree where we spent our breaks during school, but quickly decided otherwise. When we saw 2 men, well, they might have been teenagers. We were short as life itself, and it was dark. Only had the dim torchlights that outlined their bodies. We ran back to our clubhouse and told the 3 class teachers who were spending the night with us. All us children were called inside the clubhouse for safety and supervision. The male teacher that was with us took a torch and went to go check if there really were 2 guys there. And if there was, they must have somehow broken into the school, because the only way to get to the field was through the school. We were supposed to close the blinds and all, but I was too curious, so kept peeking under the blind closest to me. To this day, I remember the teacher walking like 40 meters till he was behind a tree. From my angle, I could see him. He was just standing there like for 2 minutes. He then came back and told the other teachers he saw nothing, but that they should call the cops just in case. He was so damn scared to go check it out himself. Well, I feel you, bro. I would have done the same. Anyway, later that night, 2 cops arrived, and a few minutes, 2 more vans pulled up. We were sent home. Some of the parents weren't happy to come get us past 10 p.m., and the children who didn't had lifts home went to sleep at the teacher's house. We were obviously never told what the cops found that night. I've thought of it to go ask those teachers, if they're still there, what the cops found. I'm 16 now and in high school. The creepy thing was, the Monday when we went to the school again, my group and I went to the tree where we saw the 2 men. The tree had lots of cuts in it, clearly by some knife. There was also a few numbers, not phone numbers, written all over the tree, but the sight of a big body-sized hole covered up with sand like sea sand, that bright yellowish color, made my group and I decide not to sit there anymore. Slept in the basement bedroom of a friend's cabin once. It had 2 twin beds, and my buddy was sleeping on the other bed across from me. Had been drinking throughout the day and was pretty exhausted, but tried to fight falling asleep as I laid on my back. My eyes closed, and when I opened them again, everything was normal, but I felt like I couldn't move. I could see and hear my friend, still across from me on the left, sleeping on his bed, breathing and kinda snoring. I felt this panic start rising in me out of nowhere, and a large shadow start moving up the wall and on my right side. It was just this big, shadowy mass that started to hover above me and slowly move down toward my face. I tried to move and couldn't. My friend was still sleeping, and I tried screaming to him and couldn't make a sound. I remember being able to move my mouth open, but my tongue wouldn't move, and I couldn't make a sound. Then, when the shadow came down to my face, it formed sort of a face with teeth, and something whispered in my right ear. Don't know what it said, but it immediately ripped my tongue out of my mouth, and it felt incredibly real. I jolted up in bed as soon as my tongue was ripped out, and my tongue was in a lot of pain. I woke my friend up and told him what happened, and he didn't give a shit. Just went back to bed, and I laid there until somehow fell asleep again without noticing. I've had sleep paralysis many times after that, but never as terrifying as that first time, since I now know exactly when I start to feel it happen, and can get out of it by wiggling fingers and toes. I hear if you can control the sleep paralysis, or get past it, that is how you get lucid dreaming, but I've been too scared to try. I sometimes get sleep paralysis, It happens most frequently when I fall asleep somewhere I don't normally sleep, like on the couch, hotels, friends' houses, etc. Generally, I can see the room I am in, and there will be people or shadows coming in through whatever door is nearby. I'll be trying as hard as possible to get up, but I'm stuck laying down just watching them do whatever they want. Sometimes they don't do anything, but sometimes they've had guns and attempted to arm me. Sometimes I recognize I'm dreaming and try to get myself to wake up. So my inner monologue is chanting, "Wake up, just wake up," frantically to myself. Sometimes I'll wake up just to still be dreaming. It's not supernatural, but it's so scary. In high school, I was finally on a first date with a hot friend of mine. Went parking on a remote gravel road, beautiful summer night, full moon shining over the tall corn. We were making out in the front bucket seats of my stick-shift car. I saw some shadows dancing across the front. She looked up from kissing and looked out her window and started this blood-curdling scream. I looked up in time to see something duck down from the window. She then yelled, "There's a man out there." I told her to roll up the window, and in one quick motion I started the car and shoved it in first and dumped the clutch. We were so hyped that this car just sat and spun out in the gravel, the second gear. Finally calmed down enough to drive back to town. I knew the parking was done for the evening. After taking my extremely distraught friend home, I caught up with a carload of my buddies. After relating the story, we were all ready to go back and kick the dirty bushwhacker's ass. However, all we could see in the vicinity was the farmer's large German shepherd sniffing around in the ditch. I was thinking, no way. Sure as shit, the next morning I was looking over my car and you guessed it, large paw prints on the passenger door. I bet she scared that poor dog as much as he scared her. We laughed our asses off to this day. I had gone to a party in college town nearby with two friends who were dating. We'd procured a little bit of mushrooms, and there was some drinking going on. The female friend and I partook in the mushrooms. Her boyfriend abstained. I ate 3 grams. She ate 1. Nice. I end up planted on the couch for 90% of the night, waiting for everything to kick up. There were a few visual disturbances, but even the body high was mostly non-existent. The party is people we don't know, save a few exceptions, and the apartment is too small for how many people are there. This is very likely why I didn't feel anything. After the second wave of partygoers came and went, my friends were finally ready to go home. As we get in the car, almost immediately I start to feel high. We'd been at the party for at least 4 to 5 hours, so I should have been close to sober. The female friend we were with was definitely sober, and her boyfriend had drunk maybe half a pint of liquor over the entire night, so he wasn't in driving condition, but not drunk. Obviously, she's going to drive us. We take the long way home, listening to Explosions in the Sky album, The Earth is Not a Cold Dead Place, seriously moving instrumental post-rock. During the song First Breath After Coma, we reach a long, slow curve in the road. As the song reaches its massive emotional crescendo, everything is building to a satisfying release. Out of nowhere, cars fill with a pure white light. From the corner of my left eye, I saw it coming. Before I could say a word, everything went blank. No thoughts, feelings, or senses, for what felt like minutes. Realistically, it was a second, possibly 2. The air was sucked out of the car, and my lungs, suddenly, reality is back. The song has just ended, and all 3 of us are gasping for air. Briefly, I assumed it was the drugs, but all 3 of us started scrambling to relate what had happened. We started realizing it was the exact same for each of us. She'd seen it coming out from the left corner from up in the sky down toward us, as had he. Nobody was on the road with us until we were almost home. I couldn't possibly explain what we experienced with anything rational. We will bring it up from time to time with each other or tell the story, but we gave up trying to understand it a long time ago. Part of me still wants to believe it was aliens. The other half hopes it wasn't some crazy religious stuff. My place of work is this small trailer-like building that serves as a preschool. I started working here around 3 months ago. I'd usually come later and leave later, so I would be by myself for almost 2 hours as the teachers left shortly after the school day ended. I started noticing this sound coming from the ceiling. I shoved it off as maybe the ventilation, but I swear it sounded like running. Human feet running across the ceiling. It travels across the whole building. You can almost feel the vibration from it when it happens. Weirdest of all, it seems to happen at the same time every day. My coworkers are convinced it's a ghost and have had other experiences. I've always been skeptical of anything paranormal, but this truly makes me question things. It never occurs when the air conditioning is running. The noise is too loud to be an animal. Plus, why would an animal do that at the exact same time every day? And don't have any other explanation. I've never been this creeped out in my life. I worked permanent night shifts in a large care home for about 2.5 years. It was a really old house that had been converted and had bits added onto it. Often, if someone buzzed in the night, it would wake up at least one other person, who would usually want the toilet, a drink, or think it was time to get up. Our duties involved helping people to bed, then some light cleaning and laundry, and we stayed as quiet as we could so we didn't wake people up. Every now and then we could have several people all buzz within 2 minutes of each other, asking us to tell the children to stop running around and playing outside and ask why they were up so late and where are their parents. This was only on one side of the building. Several other staff members believed it to be haunted as well. I've never actually told anyone about this, but when I was around 19 now, me and my siblings were in my room playing Halo. We only had 2 controllers, so we were taking turns, and I was just watching my brother and sister play. My room had a bathroom connected and to my sister's room that always paranoid me, so I left the door closed and locked. I noticed that the door was open and went to close it thinking my brother may have opened it. Then it was my turn, so I started playing. When I finished, I noticed that the door was open again. I told my brother very adamantly, keep the door closed and stop opening it. He and my other 2 siblings claimed they didn't open it. I closed it again and sat on my bed, staring at it, seeing why it was open. All of a sudden, the door opens, and I see some cloudy shadow that looked like a person, maybe 5'8", move into the bathroom. I didn't say anything and just bolted out of the room into my living room. I refused to go back into that room for about 2 months and just slept on the couch every night. As I said, I never told anyone about this, but I assume my mom sorta knew what had happened because about a year ago, my mom was telling me about stuff she saw in the house and never mentioned because she didn't want to scare us. My dad also had similar experiences in that house, like seeing someone leaning over him when he woke one night. That was the only experience I had there, and now I'm a bit skeptical of the paranormal and think it may have been my imagination or maybe air drafts opening the door. When I was about 18, I was staying the night at my parents' house to be closer to work for the next day. It was supposed to snow pretty bad that night. I came across some of my childhood toys and games, including my old Ouija board. My parents were not super fond of it, and me, being the asshole that I am, started messing with it and asking if there were any ghosts about. After a few minutes, I started talking trash, saying how there's no such thing as ghosts or demons, taunting it and asking for proof, if that's even possible. The next morning, my parents were at work by the time I woke up. I get ready to go and leave my bedroom, and the doorknob won't turn. It wasn't locked, and nothing was jammed into the doorframe. I try as hard as I can, and it won't budge. It almost feels like something is wedged under the knob. I start to panic and call my parents. My dad, being the eternal pessimist, thinks I'm fucking with him and just doesn't want to go to work because of the snow. He calls my mom, who comes home first. Her job was closer, and she can't turn the knob either. Dad finally shows up, big burly Bob Villa type, and cannot move the thing either. At this point, He takes the knob apart because there's no other way to get in. No one can figure out what caused this to happen, but inside there's a chunk of metal about as thick as my pinky finger that looks like it's snapped off from something. He finally sees that it's the bolt that pushes in and extends out when the doorknob is fully turned. He gets this worried look as he doesn't know how it could have happened. I joked that I guess this was my proof, and the ghosts were having a good time at my expense. That was the beginning of many other weird occurrences at that house. Our family moved from that area eventually, and we don't speak of that board anymore. When I was about 12, I woke up in the early morning about 4 or 5 a.m. and noticed the lamp next to my bed was on. It didn't initially bother me because I fell asleep with it on after reading sometimes. I turned it off and tried to go back to sleep, but as I was laying there in the dark, I just didn't feel right. I started getting scared for no reason, so I turned my lamp back on and sat back up in bed just looking around in my room. I just kind of felt like I wasn't alone, so I quickly asked hello to the emptiness of the room. And out of nowhere, a loud slushing noise came right from the corner of the room where my window was. It probably only lasted like 3 seconds, but it felt like forever, and my body just completely froze. I finally worked up the courage to run out of my room and into my parents' room. So here's the creepiest part. My mom is like really weird and likes to get up at like 2 or 3 a.m. to read her Bible and then starts a load of laundry at 3 a.m. Still does it to this day, I swear. Anyway, I was telling her what happened the next morning after we all got out of bed. When I told her that I woke up and my lamp was on, she was kinda made a face and I asked why. She said that she got up at 3 a.m. that morning like normal and walked past my room twice, going to and from her office where she reads her Bible. And my room was dark with no lights on. To this day, I'm still terrified of whatever happened that night, and whatever it was that turned my lamp on and shushed me. I'm in the Air Force and was a dispatcher for transportation stuff we did at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, working the 11 to 7 shift. Most of the calls we got were aircrew stuff, just routine picking people up from a building and taking them to their jet. I get one call that is just the norm, and I'm taking down the information to pass on to one of my guys, when the dude who calls just says, "My son got kidnapped last night." My mind suddenly goes a million places in like 2 seconds. Mind you, this is like 2 a.m. I'm in no way affiliated with the police or base security forces or anything. Why the hell is this guy telling me this? And why the hell is this guy at work if his son got kidnapped recently? So I do what any responsible person would do and completely ignore that he said it, and the phone call continues as normal like it never happened. This was 2 years ago, and I still think about it all the time. Was he pranking me? Was it some kind of shit test that I failed? I never heard anything else about it. Nothing on the news. Why did he say that? At the end of the day, I just rationalized it as him seeing if I was actually paying attention to what he was saying. But still, like, that's a fucked up thing to say to a dead, tired dude at 2 a.m. just trying to do his job. I have a couple things. I'll go in chronological order. When I was 2 years old, I had an extremely severe TBI, which caused a subdural hematoma. I died not once but twice, and the only thing I remember from my small encounter with the other side is just how ice and cold it is, not from outside sources, though it felt as though you were freezing solid from the inside out. It gave me chills, pun intended, just thinking about it. The second one was when I was almost about 6 or 7, and my brothers always heard strange noises in our childhood home when we were kids. So one day, while our parents were both away, we decided we'd sit quietly and just listen. What we heard scared us to near death. We heard footsteps upstairs, which could have just been the house settling, but then there's the undeniably freaky bit of a door which was open upstairs, slammed, and I mean slammed hard. There was no window open and upstairs or anything of the sort. We never knew what could have done it. The next one I know the logical solution for. I had a closet that was in my room as a kid, and I always thought there were monsters in it, as every kid does. Well, one night it starts violently and rhythmically shaking and slowly opening, which each shake, I was shitting in my pants, terrified, obviously. And when I somehow worked up the courage to look at the bottom of the door, it was my fucking cat. She figured out if she repeatedly pushed on the door, it would eventually open enough for her to get in. The final one, I was about 11. My father had left to go get DQ and something else, can't remember what it was, and it had only been about 5 minutes since he left when me and my mother heard the front door slam, and it slammed very, very hard. We just assumed he had went to get the ice cream and then came back to drop it off before going to the store again. After he hadn't come to the living room for about 3 minutes, we went and checked and nothing. Nobody was in the room. He hadn't returned home or anything. We still don't know what it was.